Hello everyone, welcome back to JD Bots. This is the bot series on Enterprise Chatbot. So, in our last video, we had started with our implementation of timesheet tracker and we had created a Power Automate flow that will save the inputs given by the user in a Sharepoint list. So today, in our last video, as I mentioned earlier, that would be a homework part for you, but since we are starting out this chatbot, so let me just go through those steps in this video, like how can you call the Power Automate flow from your Microsoft Bot framework, or you can say .NET application. So it's been a long time since we created last video. Since I was traveling a lot, so I did not get a chance to create or continue my series. So here I am. I'm still traveling, but I have got some time to complete this. Okay, so it will take a little bit of time for me to analyze my existing code since I haven't touched it for about a couple of weeks. Okay, so we had created this time tracker dialog. It's a waterfall dialog, and here we had added three steps: event, store event, and final step. So in the first case, we are showing the user three buttons: time in, time out, and cancel. Then based on the user's selection, we'll be performing some action. Okay. Also, let me open up the SharePoint list and as well as my Power Automate flow. Okay. So this was the flow that we had created. And let me edit and just try to understand like what exactly we had done here. So this was our SharePoint site. Let me go to that site and just have a look at my SharePoint list. Okay, perfect. So title, username, event date time, and let me also check like how the data is getting stored. So title is the concatenation of username, event name, event date time. Okay. So event name will be like, is it a time in or time out? And we have username, event name, perfect. And also as an admin, I want to get notification on my teams so that somebody has came to work and they have timed in or timed out. So the first response is for the successful and the second response is for the failure. Okay. All right. So now let me open the blog that I had told in the last video, that is calling Power Automate from C Sharp. So this was the console application I had created some time back, and I'll be making use of the same implementation except that I'll be just replacing few of the data. So I'll have to check what is the schema I had created. Okay, so in the schema I have username, I have event name, I have event date time. All right, so before just copying this, let me copy these two things, these two methods. Let me copy one by one. And also I need to make sure, okay, let's not do it there. For making an API call, let me create a new project that will handle all my common types of scenarios. Yeah. So what I'll do, I'll create a new project, and the name of my project will be class library. Let me search. Okay. And my name of the project should be JDBots Enterprise Chatbot.common. In this particular project, I'll be handling all my common method calls and everything. So let's make it .NET Core 3.1. Okay, so the first class file that I'll be using, HTTP helper, and here I'll be pasting my HTTP make request async, and also let me add a exception statement if at all some exception has occurred. Okay, so oh, I forgot, let me just change the screen size. Yeah. Okay, so this is a method that will do all of my API calls. So basically here you send the request, the GET request, and the client, HTTP client, and everything will be done here. All right. And let me make this a static method and a static class and the static method. Okay. So now we need to call the Power Automate flow, and let me call this particular method. And since we will be using most of the time Power Automate, so let me also create a helper class for the Power Automate. Or let me create a folder, and then inside that folder let me add a helper class. Okay, so I have created my class and let me paste my method over here. So this scenario is for sending, basically it's calling the Power Automate flow for sending an OTP to the user. So let me change it to call Power Automate async. All right. And in this case, I'll be passing the body from the method. So I'll be creating like this string body, and let me remove all this. And also I'll be sending the URI from there, and I don't want to, so body equals to, let's say JSON body, and here I don't have to create this, and let me just make it body itself. Okay, and make request async. So let me make a reference of this one, so it should be http helper dot make request async. So we don't have to write to the console. Let me just remove this statement, and this also we can remove. And also let's see what is the message in the exception. Perfect. All right, so we are good to go with this. Let me also make this a static. Basically, we had to implement all this thing using the interfaces, but let's keep it as it is. Okay. Okay, now at this point, when storing the user event, that is a time in or timeout, now we have to make a call with that Power Automate helper. Before that, we have to create an object of that var Power Automate helper equals to new, and we have to reference the project. Now we can call that method. So before calling, do we have a return type in Power Automate helper? We do not have a return type, but we need a return type. So return response dot toString. And let's change the return type from void to string. Okay, perfect. Now we can call that. So string await Power Automate helper dot call Power Automate async, and here we need to pass on the body. Okay, so let's create the body. So let me just take a reference of the body statement so that I don't miss anything. Okay, since time in time out will be calling it, right, the same method, so instead of calling individually, let us call like this, because the operation will be same. So what I am doing, I am making my code little bit better. So this body statement, I can add it over here. Okay, so let us get rid of the error. Okay, so now we need to pass all the properties that we have defined in our Power Automate flow, and the properties that are username, next property is event name, next we have event date time, and that's all. So let me get rid of this property. And okay, username we have to pass it dynamically, and let us pass the event name as well. So in this case, event name, so let's pass in the uppercase. Then we have event date time. Hmm. So how do we call the date time? So it will be date time dot now, and also the username. This has to be passed from the team's user details. So did we do anything about that? I am not sure, but let us check. Are we getting somewhere the team's user details? I think we are getting some from somewhere. Yeah, during the store user details, get team's user details. Yeah, this is the method that we were calling. So what I can do, I can just copy this method from here and paste it in our common class. Oops, I wanted to create a folder, and okay. Now let me copy that method over there. This should be public so that I can reference it from the other classes. I'm just installing and adding the namespaces. Okay, so we have this method ready. Now let me just remove this redundant extra namespace. And okay, now I'll be going to my time tracker dialog, and at this point I need to get the user details. So what teams user details equals to, and it should be, oh wait, what is my, okay, I need to create the object for that. It is better if we use interfaces instead of this object creation. That will be better actually. So new Microsoft Teams helper. That should be Microsoft Teams helper dot, what is the name of the method? What is the method name? So the name of our method is get teams user details. Then let me just go back to my time tracker dialog. Get teams user details. So let me search that. Okay, so I'm not finding that. What is the issue? Let me go back to the root dialog and let's see how this is being called. Since we don't have any object to pass, right? So let's modify that method for now to make use of the step context. Waterfall async. So let me make it step context, or let me just copy the parameters from my time tracker dialog. Okay, so instead of the DC context, the dialog context, I can just make use of step context dot context, and yeah, that would do. So now let us see whether we are able to call this method. So name is get teams user details. So what is the error? Let's see. There is no argument given that corresponds to the required formal parameter step context of, okay, let's pass step context and this cancellation token. Now what's the error? Member cannot be accessed with the instance variable, qualify it with a type name instead. Okay, so Microsoft Teams helper, yeah, that would do. So since this is static, we don't need this. Okay, perfect. Since we have the user details, we need to pass the username, that basically the user email. So what I'll do, teams user details dot email. Okay, so that would do. And here we need to pass few things. The one thing that we have to pass is the body. Next is the URI, and that URI I'll be getting it from the app settings.json. Basically that should not be the case. I should get it from the key vault, but for now I'm getting it from the app settings.json. We'll be implementing the key vault later. Okay, so let me go to app settings.json, and I'll be adding a new JSON object over here for the Power Automate, so that I can have all of my URIs in one place. And for the first one, I'll be just referencing the Enterprise Chatbot time tracker. Let me just make it time tracker flow. Time tracker, save to list flow. Okay, and here let me just copy the HTTP post URI. Alright, and how we can reference this one into our flow. Before calling that, let me see whether we are getting the configuration. Yes, we are getting the configuration. And also I need to check how we are getting the inner object of any JSON object. So we had done this earlier. I'm just getting it from here. So this is how you do it. So let me give a if condition. And also let me change the property name. This one is Power Automate and this one is Time Tracker save to list. Okay, so when this is done, that means I can just, let me just create an empty string URI, and here URI equals to configuration Power Automate. Alright, then I can now pass my URI over here. Perfect. Okay, so after we store the details to our Sharepoint list, next one what we have to do. Let's go back to our waterfall dialog steps. The final step, we have to say something to the user, right? So what we will say, okay, before saying something, we have to check whether our response is succeeded or not. Yeah, to do that, let me just save this flow. Okay, to do that, we have to parse our response. Before that, let me just run it so that I'll have a better idea how we can parse our JSON response to get the body out of it, the content out of it. Okay, so now let's run it. Now let us try to test our chatbot. Let me say hi to the bot and also see whether it is getting triggered. Yes. Okay, now let's say hi, home. Okay, I'll select the time tracker. Please select your event time in. I apologize, something is not right. We need to start over. Invalid URI, the URI is empty. So that is the error we got. Okay, so let us try to debug what is happening. Let us put a breakpoint at every place and let's see. I'm assuming that it is not coming up here, but yeah, we can check that. So I'm just debugging my chatbot and let's see. Let me go to my Teams and start the conversation again. Okay, so that portion is not coming up here. Wait a second, let me just check the URI value. Something is wrong. We are getting the value up here. So, okay, got it. Should be not condition, right? If it is null or empty, then only it will come up down below, else it will not come. So, let me remove this. And put it here. And also let us throw some exception. So Power Automate for saving details to SharePoint list not found. Okay, perfect. Now let us try to run and see. Perfect, perfect. So I got the message that somebody has logged in, and here you see that's my email, and it's a time in, and it's 9:30 today's date and 2:22:53 p.m. That's good, that's good. So it's taking the system time. I have not defined it UTC time. So whatever the time zone the user in is in, so that time will be taken. Yeah. But as admin part, that should not be case. I should keep the time constant, the time zone constant, so that when I look at the list, I get to analyze it properly, right? So what I'll do, I will change this to date time now to UTC. What is that? Date time dot UTC now. Okay. So what it will do? It will take the UTC time zone and just feed it in. Yeah. Let's check this out. And before checking, since we got a confirmation that this is working fine, we have to show the users a message. So let me add that message. Await step context. Okay, okay. Before that, we had to find it out the response, right? Then only we'll show the user that okay, your flow has successfully triggered. Before that, let me add a message factory dot text. Okay, so here I'll just say the event name dot upper is successful. Okay, perfect. Now, since I have put a breakpoint here, let me start debugging. Let me remove a breakpoint from here because we only wanted to check the status, the response. So currently you might be saying work like thinking that okay, I have to go to home, then I have to select time tracker, then I have to select time in. So instead of going to this conversation, how can I just directly type as time in? That's all. So it will just register that. So it is possible using Lewis that we'll be seeing. Okay. So now let me go to the next step. And also let me check the response that I have received. It's a JSON response. Okay, it's a string. So we have to make it to JSON and retrieve the message. So how do we do that? Okay, so JSON object. So I'll be just typecasting my response. Okay, and after that it will be JSON response. Okay, if let me just say string message. So whatever the message that I have received, I'll be just saying string message, and I have to typecast with string, then JSON response and message. Okay, that will get me the value of the message. And let's put a if condition. If message dot contains success, let's make it message dot to lower contains success. That means yes, it is a success. In that case, what I have to do, I have to send the user the message that your time ends is successful. Or instead of drafting the message, I can just send the response directly, right? Okay, instead of checking everything, if else condition, anyway, I have to send the user the response, right? So what I can do, I can just remove this from here, remove the condition, and whatever is the message that I'll be directly sending it to the user. So message, okay? If it is a failure, if it is a success, I'll be directly sending it to the user. Alright, so this looks fine and we have successfully implemented this. So before wrapping it up, let me just test this for the final time. And let me also check the time that it has taken, 8:56:43 a.m. And let's see, home. It's a very simple time tracker, very simple. Then I'll be testing both the scenarios, time in and as well as time out. Okay. Sorry, it looks like something went wrong. Unable to cast object of type JSON value. So, okay. But anyway, the timing was successful. We have to make few changes to our this JSON thing. Let me see. I have put a breakpoint here. JSON object dot parse, and it should be the response. Okay. Yeah. So now easily we can get it using this key value, and it should be a string. Okay, perfect. Now let us try. I hope this should work. This time I'll be using the timeout. Oh, sorry. I had to click on timeout. But yeah, that's all right. We can do it in next time. Okay. Timing got successful and let's home. We need to remove that trigger intent completed. Okay, timeout successful. That's good. Okay, now let us go and check our SharePoint list. Okay, here you can see all the details. Time in 9/8/26, time 9/8/50, and let us go to our SharePoint list, and here we are getting all the data. Yeah, that's good. That's good. We got the timeout and event date time. Okay, so now one more case. In this, in order to make it perfect, because sometimes employees just forget to time out or forget to time in. So how do you plan to tackle that? So just let me know in the comments below and we'll think of a solution. It's to remind the user to time in. So basically that will be a very advanced concept I am thinking as of now. Yeah, so basically that should be the activity of the user. If we can track the user's activity, their sign-in activity to any of the application, let's call it as Microsoft Teams as okay. So when user comes to the office and if they open the Microsoft Teams or any office application, so their activity gets logged in Azure Active Directory. We can retrieve that information. Okay, users authentication is successful. I can show you that activity so that we can plan it better. So let me just log into Azure Active Directory. Okay, so I am on the sign in logs for my account, and here I can see the different activities that are generated, the sign in log, sign, and I can see different sign in logs activities are generated. So here's the application, Microsoft Teams. So somehow if I can retrieve this data, send a proactive notification to the user, reminding him or her about the time in, right? So I can do that. And yeah, let's see. Because here, if the status is successful, then I can send the users a proactive notification to sign in or sign out. Yeah, to time in or time out. Okay. And yeah, that's it. So in such cases, what we have to do, we have to give the users the option to click on a button. So instead of going to our chatbot, what the user can do when we send a proactive notification with two buttons, time in or time out, we are just asking the user to click one of the button and the user will be directly triggering the flow and sending the required information. Yeah. So that is one of the case that we will try to implement if time persists. Yeah. Thank you all.